So the plan for the next few videos here are just to review how you might approach History Extension question 1. So some of the general themes and principles that you need to remember as you approach the question, and then we'll also have a look at a couple of sample kind of questions that might help you begin to plan for organizing your sources and organizing your thoughts as well. So remember, question 1 is the question in History Extension where you're given a source, so generally an extract, and you're asked to actually use it to answer a particular question. So in this case, you've got about a 500 word extract from David Christian's History and Global Identity. And the question here is, with reference to the ideas put forward by David Christian, critically evaluate the aims and purposes of history. Support your argument with reference to at least 2 other sources. So that's basically the structure of question 1. And it suggests here as well, it's important to remember, you will be assessed on how well you present a detailed, logical and well-structured answer to the question. Use relevant issues of historiography and use relevant sources to support your argument. So you need to be prepared to do those 3 things because they underpin the marking of this section of the exam. Just to quickly, I suppose, outline in a little bit more detail what you've got to do. You need to use that stimulus text, so you need to really be able to identify the main point of the text, the general position that it takes on the question. I think it's important to be able to do that, so ask that question of the source. You also need to be able to identify 3 to 5, depending on how long the source is and how dense it is, and what the question is, 3 to 5 ideas that could be used to discuss you could use to discuss in the essay. And they might be points that you want to affirm or challenge or just raise as a talking point. But it's certainly okay that you don't have to argue with the source. You can certainly argue against parts of it as well. So it's your ability to critically evaluate that source along with other sources that I think demonstrates a stronger knowledge in this part of the exam. You also obviously need to draw on a range of historians, commentators and issues to develop your critical discussion about some aspect of history. In the last example we looked at there, it was the aims and purposes, but it might be the role of the historian, it might be some other particular question or aspect of historiography that you're asked to deal with. So I think the important thing here is that you need to be prepared to have a range of sources that you could use, but also be prepared to select only the most relevant sources, individuals, schools of thought, issues, particular articles, whatever it is that you have prepared with, to actually critically discuss the issue that is in the question. So it's only the most relevant. Don't plan to just go in and write about the exact same 3 or 4 or 5 articles, sources, individuals, whatever, each time you have an essay. You might use common commentators, that's fine, but don't just plan to have exactly the same group of people used in exactly the same order. That really is basically just preparing an answer, and that's not what they want you to be able to do. They want you to be agile with the sources that you have. So, and finally, also, obviously, you have to develop a coherent essay that's critical, okay, and answers the question that you've been given. So don't go in thinking, I've got 5 sources, I'm just going to write about the same thing each time. That's not going to work. You need to be able to respond to the question on the page using a source that you haven't seen.